Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us for this career discovery session. We're really lucky to have Stephanie Hood here with us. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Stephanie, and she can introduce herself, and we can start to talk about life and environmental in terms of a career.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. So, like she said, my name is Stephanie Hood. I am our talent acquisition business partner for global operations at Hawk. Um, and I've been working with the company since 2013. So, Hawk is world renowned, known for creating testing analyzers and chemical reagents that are used in water quality testing. So obviously, with that being said, we have positions that are really focused in environmental chemistry, those type of things that a lot of students show interest in our company because they're going into a life science background. So I have a presentation that I'm going to share with you today that just kind of goes through our company, high overview, and then of course answer any questions that you may have, not only about the types of jobs that we have, but even just if you have questions about, um, resumes or career tips or anything like that, I am more than happy to help. So let me share my screen and hope it, oh, can you enable me to be able to share? Oh, there we go. Okay. Here we go. Perfect. And can you see my screen okay? Is it showing a PowerPoint? Oh, thank you. Okay, hold on, try again. Love technology. Okay, now it should be working. Yep, okay, perfect. Okay, so get started here with technology, gotta love it. Okay, so to start off, and on the screen here, you're going to see some examples of the analyzers that are used, and these are some of our chemical reagents. This is one that actually most people are familiar with. It's a pH test strip, and we actually produce these for people to test their pool water to make sure that the chemicals and everything are at the right levels to make sure no one's getting sick. But we also make test strips that are used by diabetics, for example, to test their blood. So go to the next slide. So within our company, we have lots of different machines, obviously, that are used in producing our products. So our company is getting more and more involved in robotics. We're also creating machines and analyzers that allow us to send equipment to third world countries or countries that are in higher poverty areas that have no access to clean water to be able to test that water affordably and with not having a lot of access to electricity and things like that. So and materials that are used, of course, water, chemistry, and things of that nature. And skipping through some of these. So the types of STEM positions or life science positions that we have at Hawk, like I said earlier, we look, we have chemists, we have people within research and development. They're coming up with obviously new ways to test water quality. Something interesting that you may or may not have heard in the news, COVID can actually be tested based off of the wastewater of a community. So for example, in Colorado, the university there, I believe it's Colorado State University, they are partnering with Hawk to test the wastewater of the campus to see if there's a spike in COVID levels. So if people aren't getting individually tested, we can still test the community water to see if there's been a spike in COVID cases, which is pretty cool. Um, and then we do have quality technicians that also would fit into that life science role where they're looking for any quality defects in raw material or in the chemistry that we're producing. And then, of course, engineering type positions and then math positions. Um, we also have supply chain, which within, even if you're going into a life science field, it's still a good background if you want to get into the supply chain aspect of a company that's within life sciences. And that's really the main things that I can share. It's pretty basic, and I wanted to be able to have a more robust conversation as well. So at this time, we can open it up for questions.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Um, okay, so can you tell me a little bit about your educational background and how
Oh yeah.
you ended up in your position and industry?
Yep. So, like most students will find out, you go to college for one thing and you end up maybe sometimes in a different career. But I have my bachelor's degree in sociology and political science from the University of Iowa. And I have been in human resources or talent acquisition pretty much my whole career. I started off in the wireless industry back in early 2000s when cell phones were very basic and still kind of new, and worked my way up there in leadership. And then from there, I've just moved into different opportunities, um, different responsibilities within HR, recruiting, leadership. So,
Great. So as you're doing recruiting for your company,
mhm,
what are the skills? So students need to have those technical skills, the
yep,
education and
yep,
experience to be able to fit the position. But what are some of those other things that you're looking for
yep,
in a quality candidate to come into
yep,
your company or work in
yep.
this industry?
Great question. So, soft skills are probably the most important skills that you can demonstrate when you're going through an interview process and what we're looking for. Obviously, like you said, you have to have the technical skills. So, for example, within our chemist positions or chemical technician positions, we require at least a year of college level completed chemistry with lab. Um, and then, of course, some additional experience is great, but that's like one of the main requirements. But what I look for is the soft skills that you don't learn by reading a book or going to a lab, and that is, um, can you work well with others? Are you dependable and reliable? Are you able to communicate with different levels of people? Are you able to communicate verbally and non-verbally? Um, and do you have that self motivation to accomplish tasks without having to be told multiple times maybe to do it? Um, are you able to have high attention to detail and um, you know the quality of work and being able to double check your work and making sure that what you're producing is correct? So um, those are skills that are hard to put onto a resume per se, but one thing I look for too when I'm looking at a resume is not only, the technical experience within the jobs, but how long were you at a job? How many jobs have you had? Do you only stay at the jobs a few months and then you're on to a different job? Those are what we would call red flags that we look for, because that could mean maybe some of those soft skills are the reason why there's lots of jobs on there. Obviously, it could be other great things too, like promotions, or you got more pay, or you're moving to be closer to home. And so that's why you'll hear a lot about AI, artificial intelligence being used in the recruiting process. But we still do it old school. We use a little bit of AI, but I still believe in reaching out to someone and just getting to know them and understand my questions and their background. And then from there, I'm able to make a better determination if that person is going to be successful in our company.
Great. So if you ask people who are working in those technical positions across your company,
Mhm.
what would you think that you would hear them say about what they love about working in the water
Mhm.
quality industry?
Yep. It's fast paced. You're never bored. You're always busy, and you're making a difference. Water is one of those things that we take for granted, especially here, in Iowa. You turn on your faucet and you just are assuming and hoping it's safe, right? You really don't give it much thought. But um, one good example here in Iowa where you do need to think about it is obviously we're a very farm heavy state. And with that, nitrates is a part of the farming process. And so every once in a while, if you pay attention to the news, they'll talk about different cities and their water treatment plants suing farmers basically because high level of nitrates is not healthy for us. And so to remove those nitrates, cities and water treatment plants have to spend millions upon millions of dollars to get that removed. And so um, that's it's very rewarding is what people are going to say, knowing that you're working on a product, you're developing a product that's literally ensuring people are healthy and able to quite honestly stay alive because you can only go about 3 days without water.
Yeah, great. Um, so much purpose
Yes.
in water quality.
Yep.
Absolutely. What do you think they would say is the hardest thing about working in water quality?
That it's fast paced and always busy. The technology is ever changing, right? And a lot of companies, obviously, you are going to have some great products, but you don't want it to just end there. You want to continuously be improving, right? To make that product even better, maybe make it cost less. And so, with that continuous improvement mindset, there's lots of changes. And so adaptability is definitely a strong skill to have, quite honestly, in any job because life changes every day. It's some of the work can be repetitive in nature, especially in lab testing, doing the same test over and over. But at the same token, keeping in mind what that purpose is and how important it is to make sure that the chemistry we're putting out there is correct, can literally mean the difference between someone drinking bad water or not. So I'd say that's probably the parts that they struggle with sometimes. Is just sometimes it's too fast paced and you just need a moment to breathe.
Sure, absolutely. Um, what advice do you have for students who are interested in pursuing a career in environmental sciences or water quality
Life
specifically?
sciences, yeah. So obviously, right now, depending on what grade you're in, look at those science courses. Make sure that if that's a field you want to get into, definitely look in taking, biology and anatomy and chemistry and physics and all that. And then once you get to college, whether it's a 2 year or a 4 year program, definitely those intro classes to chemistry, environmental science, physical science. Those are important classes to look at. On top of that, though, I'd also recommend and remind you that it's not just those technical skills. So make sure you take a class on speech, communication. I know English is not everyone's favorite subject, but it's highly important because it's teaching you those skills that we can't necessarily teach on the job. We can sure help, but it's one of those things where you just have to continue to um, practice and gain more confidence in communication skills.
That's great. Um, what do you think the job outlook is like in water quality or in environmental and life sciences in general?
That's a great question too. So we are, and if COVID has taught us anything, we're definitely a little bit more insulated from ups and downs in the markets, depending on what's going on, whether it's a global pandemic or a national recession like we had back in 2008. So, um, because water is a resource you can't easily reproduce, and that a lot of regions and countries and even regions in the US are suffering from water scarcity, those jobs are going to continue to be highly important to understand how can we take care of what we have now, while at the same time, on the other aspect, it's looking at how do we, look at how do we make maybe the oceans, how do we make that process cheaper to, you know, take out the salt and be able to use that as usable drinking water and things of that nature. So, because of just it being a resource that we can't live without, it's going to continue to see growth in jobs and stability in the jobs that are available.
Great. Um, One of the things that we advocate a lot for is for students to go out and seek a job shadow or an
Mm.
internship or do an interview with somebody who works in something they think they might be interested in. How valuable do you think that is?
It is, especially, if you're planning on going to college, that's one thing I would highly recommend you do, because it does, while you're still in college and you're kind of in that safe space where you can determine what you want the next step in your journey to look like. An internship or a job shadow gives you an idea if this is really what you want to do, right, long term. And I personally can speak of an experience. I always thought I wanted to be a lawyer growing up, hence why I studied poli sci in college. But I had a senior co-op with one of the district attorney's office. And once I got into it, I realized, oh, it's not like TV. There's a lot of paperwork and it's not just the trials. And so I realized from there, I'm not the kind of person to be meant sitting behind a desk doing a lot of administrative stuff. I'm highly um, outgoing and like to talk to people and help people. And so that's why I went into human resources and talent acquisition. I can help people make sure they're getting great jobs to be able to, realize their dreams in their life. So highly
Fantastic.
encourage it.
Any other plugs for why going into water quality or life environmental sciences is a great thing for students?
Yeah. Like I said, it's you are truly doing something that impacts every living thing on this earth. And I can't think of something okay, I can think of probably a couple other areas that would be just as satisfying, but to know that you're having that impact, and you're giving back in some form, a capacity to those around you and to those you'll never meet in the world is pretty satisfying. I always say, on my worst days when you're just having a bad day at work, it helps to know you're doing something that you're passionate about and that you're helping others, because it can really help you get through those ruts that are naturally occurring in anyone's job. And then, of course, from a economic standpoint, the job stability that comes with it, and knowing that there's going to continue to be jobs there and opportunities. That's definitely something, that's important as you start getting a mortgage and car payments and maybe starting a family. Having to worry about if your job's going to go away because of a recession or a global pandemic. Um, Life sciences in general, whether it's water quality or a different life science, um, those are jobs that typically are going to fare very well no matter what's going on in the world. So that's why I would recommend them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for your time today. This
Yeah,
has
no
been great
problem.
to hear from you and to hear about, the impact that people can make and, you know, passion, purpose, but then also having, a family sustaining wage and a great career. Sounds
Hmm.
like all of that comes together when you think about water quality and think about environmental life sciences.
Yep.
So thank you so much for this time. Thanks for joining
Yes.
us. This has been great.
No problem. Thank you. And if anybody has questions, feel free to give them my email, and glad to answer any questions that people have maybe, you know, later on down the road.
And we do have one quick question, but I'm going
Okay.
to stop record and then we'll get to
Okay.
that because I think it's pretty specific.
Okay.